Yo, everybody, how's it going? This is K-Rail. This is Train for Longevity podcast, episode number 10, and it has been far too long since we did one of these. It is so much fun, and it is such an honor for me to be associated with this man that I'm going to be interviewing today and talking smack with, my very good friend, film producer, internationally known and highly successful film producer, Doug Orchard, who makes the best documentary films, not only that I have seen, but I have the honor of being in a couple, more than one, and to be a serial guest in documentary films is hard to believe. I feel super honored to be that person. Doug has been in the film industry for a while. The cool thing about Doug Orchard is not only does he produce films, but he's not out of shape. He doesn't eat cheeseburgers every day. He actually lives the lifestyle that he chronicles in his movies. Now, The Motivation Factor, for example, I think is one of the greatest documentary films of all time. It really goes deep into the trenches when it comes to physical education and PE and what it used to be like in schools. And if you have not seen this film yet, I highly suggest you go and watch it immediately after watching this podcast or listening to us talk shop today. Fasting. Come on. Fasting is the hottest thing on the market right now. Everyone and their brother is talking about it. Everyone wants to do it. Everyone's trying to do it. Everyone wants more information about it. Doug's movie, the movie Fasting, hands down is the best documentary film I've ever seen on the topic of fasting. And if you are on the fence of where to do or where to go, I highly suggest you see that one too. So your homework assignment automatically right now, I'm telling you, is watch The Motivation Factor and Fasting and watch them back to back. You're going to be blown away. That's all I have to say. Now, let's get back to Doug. Like I was saying, he actually lives the lifestyle. He is very well schooled with classical training, historical arts, Indian clubs, maces, goddess, all this other stuff that has to do with old school type training, bodyweight exercise, etc. And also obviously fasting too. So we're going to come back and talk a little more about classical training and stuff like that. But I want to address fasting now because it is apropos to talk about it, because I just finished a 48-hour fast a day and a half ago. As you can see, my energy levels are through the roof like a lightning bolt. Not that they normally aren't, but they are more than normal. And Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you still on a fast right now?
Yeah, I mean, without talking to each other, we started our fast the exact same time.
That's
Sunday
right.
afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'm still in it. Right now it's Thursday afternoon. And
Awesome.
I'm trying to decide whether I end it after we're done here or whether I'm going to end it tomorrow morning. I'm trying to go camping this weekend, so I want to make sure I have enough energy level for that. So, but I'm getting incredible results right now. So one thing that I've noticed about fasting, and the reason I made the film the way I made it, I mean, that film, I've got a lot of criticism from people who don't know anything.
Oh, dude, let me just pause the tape right there. Anyone out there who's sending these like trolling, like stupid idiot messages on like the blog posts and like on the fasting movie trailer page and stuff, I don't know. You got rocks in your head. That's all I got to say. I don't even know where you're getting your information from, but it's completely false and it's unverified in my opinion, but that's just me. Bullies are going to be bullies, and they just, yeah.
The problem we have, we read is it's crazy how siloed we have become. I'm speaking about everybody in general. And just looking at one thing. So for fasting, maybe they were introduced to intermittent fasting. And if they watch a movie that covers that and covers other concepts like time restricted feeding, which is a little different, but it could be the same. And also, you know, a longer water fast, or it could be a very long one that's under medical supervision in a fasting clinic, or it could be something that would be something like a fasting mimicking diet fast, where you're actually eating, but your body's still fasting. All of those things, I felt like in the movie, I just wanted to present, here's fasting. If I even had a little reference to religious fasting, the whole thing was there. But yet people who liked just water fasting, maybe a 5-day fast, or people who like just intermittent fasting or whatever they like, they were that we use that word fasting and included this other stuff. It's like, no, fasting is only this. And then they said, you were trying to say, and then your message said, and all these things, I didn't have a message. That was the most interesting film I've ever done. I just wanted to present, here's these people doing this, and here's their experience. And so I didn't say anything. There was no narrator. I didn't want to, because I felt like we were a little early in the game in some ways. And so I just want to present this as fasting so that whatever the person kind of needed when they're watching it, it'll call them. You know, they'll say, you know what, this is interesting. I've got diabetes. This approach to diabetes seems to be working really well. I'm going to try this or whatever, you know. So that was the idea.
Well, I feel you mastered it, to be honest with you. It was perfectly laid out. And I found it very interesting that there was no narrator, because I don't remember seeing a documentary film before where there was no narrator. There's always
there is right now. There is right now. There's a film. Who's the guy? Who's that director? Peter, the guy who did Lord of the Rings. Do you know Peter?
Yeah. I don't know his
British
name,
guy.
Yeah.
Okay, he's huge, right? He's huge. He did Lord of the Rings and all that stuff. He just came out with a documentary. And what he did is he took the World War I footage, and then he completely remastered it like no one's ever done. And then he went and got the sounds of whatever artillery is being fired and put that right to it. He got the ambient sound and put that in it. And then he went and had professional lip readers read the lips of like a soldier just saying whatever to another guy. And they figured out where they were from, like from Kent, and got that accent and had an actor read that exactly perfectly to the lips. So all of the movie is just old footage that you film like they just.
Your signal's just going haywire on us.
England. It's like it's got. Yeah, that's just our Google Hangout thing. I'm still here.
That's all right.
Anyway,
I get what you're saying. That's interesting.
The point is the whole film is just old footage without a narrator or anything. And he said, I don't want to get in the way of this, which I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to do. I mean, it's exactly what I wanted to do. And so, you know, it's so easy to give a message, to have a narrator, to put up the graphics and just blah, blah, blah. And everybody's already doing that. I knew they would do it. Because remember, I started fasting really before it became the thing, the movie. It takes a long time. I was doing it for a couple of years. And I knew who the experts were, and I knew what they learned. And I'm really glad I did, because I've been looking at how people have been dealing with this topic online.
Yeah.
I think I made the right call. There's a lot of brand new experts who've never guided anybody of quantity in a safe fashion towards anything, and they are mad as can be that the film even makes reference that there's people who have an eating disorder, or people who might die from fasting, or get sick from fasting, or have problems from fasting. Like, no, it's just perfect. Nothing in medicine is perfect. Nothing is perfect. There is not a medication. There's not a harm. There's nothing in medicine that doesn't have a problem for somebody. There is always that. And if anybody ever tells you in medicine that it's perfect, it has no problem, they are selling and lying to you at the same time. You have to know that. Yeah,
that is a really good theory to live by, because you're absolutely correct on that and 100% accurate. And just watch any pharmaceutical drug commercial, and that verifies exactly what you're talking about. I mean, let's please trust Levitra with your heart. I trust Levitra to my heart. That's what the actor says. The non-paid actor says that. And I laugh for hours, because 30 seconds of the commercial is dedicated to what the drug does for you, and 1 minute and 30 seconds is dedicated to all the side effects it causes. It may cause extreme swelling of the face, breast, chest, neck, and head, and glutes. May cause severe depression. May cause suicidal thoughts. And the drugs that are made for depression and anxiety, side effect is they may cause suicidal thoughts. Are you serious? I mean, come on. Really, I'll tell you what you can do to prevent anxiety, or treat your anxiety and depression. Maybe I should use the word treat. I don't want to get sued. Let's say, not treat, but help reduce the symptoms of anxiety and depression. Do a 2-day water fast and watch what happens. After hour 36, when you wake up in the morning, your mood is going to be through the roof. Your brain function is going to be through the roof. Your hormones are going to be stabilized. Don't forget, every single thing that happens during the course of the day relies on your hormones. They drive everything. Your sex drive, your muscle, your energy, your muscle gain, your muscle mass, your lean muscle, like everything. Whatever it is, it's all based on your hormones. And the best way to balance them out is through the medium of fasting.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that is part of how you live a healthy life. It's a feast and famine cycle that has always existed in the human condition. And it appears to be good for the human to go through both feasting and famine cycles. The other thing that's, of course, we know is you need to rise and fall with the sun on a regular basis. So circadian rhythms are where it's at, and that means eating with that and sleeping with it and the whole thing. We know that we need social interaction. We know that if you need a strong community, we know that you absolutely must have exercise and a lot of different kinds of the right exercise. And the list goes on. But the point is, there is no one thing. It's all part of this beautiful tapestry that contributes to a abundant, healthy lifestyle. And the absence of this, it's the lack of knowledge that we have as a society right now on the whole thing that is root cause to our national debt, which is a film I've made. And every movie I've made always makes reference to how this fits in with the national debt. You'll see. That's how I've always brought it up.
Yep,
and true. The reason I bring that up is in the motivation factor. We had economists go back and do research and look at, because we hear this statement that 80% of our healthcare costs are preventable, and that seems to be a really, and that's lifestyle based. So we're making on all these things we need to do for lifestyle. If we lived a healthy lifestyle, 80% of the federal expenditure in healthcare would be gone. So what would have happened in the film? It looks at since 1995 to present, or to a couple of years ago. What did that add up to? Well, it added up to about $21 trillion. That's our national debt. The entire national debt today would be zero, and our deficit wouldn't actually exist right now because that extra amount is going to Medicare. So the whole point here is we cannot financially sustain this. Medicare is projected to exceed the entire US national budget. Okay, that's where it's going. So as we all age, that's where it's going to. So we either change the trajectory path or we are no longer as a people. Someone else can come in and can figure this out better. So this isn't like nice to do, although individually we're subscribing to this because it's important. But as a filmmaker, I'm interested in topics that have the potential to move the needle for society, which is why I made the film on fasting, because for one, Dr. Jason Fung recently, I understand, I haven't even read this one yet. Dr. McCullough just shared this when we were walking on the beach. And he said that Dr. Jason Fung published a paper that he looked at 3 patients who he couldn't get to make any modifications in their lifestyle, except don't eat after dark, okay? Don't eat at night. So they did time restricted feeding, which if no one understands what that means just don't eat as it's getting dark, as the sun is getting softer, the light's getting less bright, your melatonin's being released, and it's communicating to the rest of your body to go into nighttime mode. Nighttime mode exhibits some things like pancreas no longer works, okay? Right. So you become a diabetic at night, everything's gonna shoot it right up. That's not the time to eat. Humans never used to eat at night. If you just go out backpacking, you're gonna eat a lot in the morning, a lot in the midday, and you're exhausted by the end of the day, and you just have a little thing and you go to bed. And that's what a normal human would do with all the sun that they're getting and interaction, all this stuff. You go into it really quickly. But because we haven't been doing that, he got them just to do that. Well, what happened to these 3 diabetics who had been insulin dependent for 10 years? Their diabetes went away.
I was going to say, I'm guessing their A1C got way better and their blood sugar stabilized, but you just said it.
They didn't need insulin anymore. That is so ridiculously shocking. That is why I made the movie. When I heard about just time restricted feeding, I said, this has to go out. We have to communicate to people. So anybody that I understand, I don't believe that there's a medical, and I'm not making a statement because I'm not qualified to make a medical statement. I'm a filmmaker, everyone. But from everyone I've interviewed who are qualified, it does not seem to be a problem for anybody that I've seen so far to live time-restricted feeding lifestyle. Now, some people say, oh, I'm hypoglycemic, I got this, and this, talk to your doctor or whatever. But I'm telling you, you've got to get to that moment. And that's what humans used to do. We stopped doing that. And that is root cause, it appears, to most of our chronic illnesses. Because if you happen to be a mouse and you go to time-restricted feeding mode, all of your chronic illnesses go away. Now, we know animal studies don't have like 100% transfer rates and all that stuff, but it is super interesting.
It is, and it's a good crossover point. I mean, it's a good reference point for us as plebeians that we are, to use mice as an example. And I have a story about the time restricted feeding myself. I have a client I work with, her and her husband. They come to town every so often during the year, and she was in town. She's in town now. And we trained yesterday, and she comes to me and her eyes are like this big around. She was super excited, and she informed me that she made one small change with her diet and did 12-hour time restricted feeding. And right before she started, because of like I was talking to her about a while ago, before she started doing this, she had been notified by her doctor that she was pre-diabetic, and she was shocked. It just came from out of nowhere. And I said, like, just try doing time restricted feeding. I said, even if you do a 12-hour window and stop eating by 7, you can have drastic changes. Well, lo and behold, she goes and does it, goes back for a blood test. I think it was 3 months later. A1C, right down, no longer pre-diabetic, back to normal. She was blown away. I'm like, it's that simple. So all you people listening out there, seriously, if you want to attempt to reverse disease or like diabetes or any kind of condition you have, just simply eat between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Just do it for a few months and see what happens. Do a blood test before and a blood test after. That's what I ask you to do. And I'm not a doctor either. I'm just giving you common sense. I'm telling you to go to your doctor and say, give me a blood test now, and then follow a 12-12 eating window for 3 months, and then go back and get another blood test and just see what happens. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, that's pretty easy for people. Of course, I found for me, I've got to go a little longer, but I do a little longer fasting window. But for me, I think optimal is what Jack LaLanne did. This is what works for Doug Orchard. Jack LaLanne ate at 10 in the morning and at 4 in the afternoon, and that was it. They ate twice a day. And what is that, 18? Is an 18 fasting window? 18 hours?
I'm doing the math right now. 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sounds like 18 to me.
Yeah, okay. It's like 7-hour eating window. So whatever it's 24 minus 7 is, 17, 18-hour fasting window.
So he worked out in a fasting state.
First thing in the morning, right?
And he had something that is important that all of us should be looking for right now, because too often we look at what longevity is about, and that's not what's important. It's not lifespan, it's health span. What quality of life can we do? And what do I want to do? Well, Kevin, you met me right when I was just starting to film The Motivation Factor at the very, very outset. In fact, it was actually, I think it was about a month or 2 months before I started filming it.
Yeah,
and that was heavier than
years. You're probably a good 40 pounds heavier. I mean, your face, like your cheeks were pudgy. You had this gut. I was like, I wasn't judging you, but based on the way you are now and then, wow, it's a night and day difference. But go ahead.
It's a big difference, and it's because I was going to the gym. And I was doing everything I understood I was supposed to do. And by the way, I was looking better than I had looked a little bit before that. I have a picture when I was 30, and you're like, what? So,
love to see it.
So, a lifestyle transformation, and this is what everybody needs to do. So you just pick up, okay, this is a very important thing. Along the way, the thing that matters the most to me, the number one health thing, and I'm telling you about the number one thing, in my opinion, from everything I've seen, is time restricted feeding. If you were going to say, and I'm so against this, by the way, I'm so against choosing one thing, because people want to pit eating right against time restricted feeding, or eating versus exercise or whatever. And I'm like, no. You're really missing everything by that thought. It's all, you do it all. But if you had to choose one, I would choose that one, because I think that would prevent disease the longest and whatnot. And when I started filming Motivation Factor, something happened to me, and that was I was becoming more limber, better shape, more interested in playing with my children, more interested in doing things, more of everything. It was like such a wonderful experience in life. Also, what went away was any incidences that I used to have with, common depression and those kinds of things. That just fell completely out of my life. I mean, it's been so long I mean, I just know that it used to be there, and it used to always be there for a long time, but it wasn't there. It hasn't been there at all since. And so, by the way, that is all exercise based for me primarily. I know there's some other things that's supposed to help, but the right kind of exercise. So the reason I say all of that is one of the things that really inspired me along that way through motivation factor was coming across an individual who had been a special forces person back in World War II. And I'm talking about the most special of the special forces. This is before we even had special forces. This is like the one thing the United States had. And that individual was 95 years old, and he could do 95 push-ups.
In a row?
In a frickin' row. Kevin, I can't, if I sat down right now, I can't do it. But I'm turning 50 in a couple months, and I'm going to be able to do 50. And my goal, which is what he had, he said that was me when I was that age. His goal was to always be able to do the amount of push-ups of the age he is. So he says, when I'm 100, I'm going to do 100.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, I treat push-ups differently than other people treat them, and I'm all about precision, quality. In fact, we're going to talk about extension press-ups in a minute, but I'd rather do like 5 sets of 5 of really good quality classical push-ups than do like sloppy sets of 20 to 50 push-ups, which I see everybody do in the gym around me. It drives me crazy. And I have like very strict standards about form and the way your hands are and your elbows and your shoulders and all that kind of stuff. But if you can do 50 quality push-ups, if you can do 20 quality push-ups, I'd be super impressed. I probably couldn't do it. I might be able to do 15. I'm not sure if I can get to 20. I could probably do 20, but there's no way I can fit.
I agree. When I hit quality right now, 20. But I'm going to do 50 on my birthday. No, but the point is this. It doesn't have to be push-ups. That's what he did. The point is this. He was going for increasing his health span. Jack LaLanne at age 95, all these guys were doing things that most of us can't do in our 30s, 40s, and 50s. They're doing in their 90s.
Wow.
And they're doing it well. They're doing it well. So what's the difference? Well, there's a lot there. But the first thing that has to happen is I can't be sitting around taking 12 medications and living in a wheelchair. That's going to prevent me to do anything. And I can't have broken hips and all. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be there for me to do this right. So I'm interested in preserving our health span. If we can increase our health, the quality of our health span, health span. No,
lifespan?
Is that the word I'm looking for? Lifespan, health,
longevity.
Health,
quality of life,
experience.
quality of life. I think.
All right, I've lost the word. I think I said it correctly before. Maybe I didn't, but the quality of our health experience. Yeah, that is it. It is called health span. That is it. It's not lifespan. It's health span. Right. Yeah. So if we increase our health span, then we are going to see our national debt become solvable as a nation. If we don't, and if we do not teach all the baby boomers and everybody younger and everybody else out there how to do this and motivate them to do this and convert them into this and actually get them to do it. If we fail, there is no economic solution that will fix it. I just did an entire movie, The Power of Zero, about this, about the national debt. I'm the world's top economist. I mean, from George Shultz, who was, Dean of Chicago, Business and Economic School, and then he was also the Secretary of State under Reagan, to Kolikoff, to all the guys. All these guys were in the film, and it didn't matter how you looked at this. It didn't matter what political persuasion, it didn't matter what the solution was. We have to change the health experience, the healthy experience, and the health education level of individuals. And too often right now, we're saying, when we look at anything, all they say is for health, they immediately start talking about, we need to have them meet with their doctor more often for screening. We need to do, it all becomes these things where it would be cost. I'm like, no, someone needs to teach the person how. I haven't been the doctor forever.
Good for you. So we have a freeze.
I'm not saying that person should. I'm just realizing it's been a while, but I'm healthier than I've ever been. And so that's what needs to change, and that's what I'm interested in doing, and that's what I like what you're doing, because Kevin, now I appreciate your accolades you gave me in the beginning. I know, as you know, head of Harvard Medical School and Chicago and Cleveland Clinic and you name it, they've all been my films. I know all these people. I text them, they text me back, they email me, whatever. The largest bloggers in health in the world. I know the number one, the number two, and all going down really well. And friends with them. Bought my house from one of them. Not to put any of them down, as great as their information is, when I want to know something about what I should eat, what I should do, I text you. And you know that because you get it from me all the time. And the reason why is, Kevin, you figure this out. And learning is more about than just book knowledge. It's about learning to apply it. And then the next thing is, how do you teach and transfer that to other people? So you're very good at that. And that's why I'm here right now, to support you in anything that you need, because that's what our country needs right now. And we need a lot more of that than the over focus on, I want to look like this way and buy. Everyone's going to surgery mode to try to look good. It's crazy. But they're skipping the whole core part of your body, the health part. They're missing everything. They're going to bed late at night. It's all wrong.
It is. It's completely backwards. It's late night eating. It's late night drinking of not just alcohol, but sugary beverages, etc. Mm-hmm. It's the 6 meals a day. It's the pre-workout formulas. It's like the list is endless, and it's all completely backwards and wrong. And I've been an evangelist for months, for years about this stuff. And I'm trying to get through to people. And sometimes I listen and sometimes they don't. And sometimes I get haters and detractors and trolls. And that's to be expected. When you take a stand on something, it's always going to happen. And you're going to get them. I'm going to get them. We're all going to get them. But words don't hurt. They're just words. And that's the way I look at it. And you have to put your foot in the ground and plant hard and take a strong shift or cut to the left or right and go around him and just keep on going forward. It's like a football player would. So
let me share something with you that I find interesting, because one of the criticisms people had with fasting or for anything was, that's not how I do it. That's not the experience. Or they'll say, no, that's not how it is. They're a blogger. They decided they've been writing about building houses, and then suddenly they have this article on fasting.
Right? Don't you love those people? Love it.
No, I saw that yesterday. So, maybe they had a good experience, but they've read some things and off they go. And they're quoting, and they don't understand really who you should quote. See, there's a whole thing to this, and people who are actual, researchers, like my son's getting a PhD and right now, and he understands how to quote who you quote. And I had professional training in this when I went through my education on this. So it's dangerous to just look at, hey, here's an article, and this article was referenced 5 times. Or they'll go the other way. They'll say, here, I found 5 articles and they all list this one reference. And so it's all good. Well, you go look at that reference and realize they guys just pulled it right out of the sky. The best example is that 10,000 steps thing. I went and did the research on where 10,000 steps came from. It came from the corporation that was making those pedometers, right?
Oh, of course.
So, in Japan in the 60s. And they just came up with 10,000 steps. Okay, so I don't do that at all. So if your person likes it, whatever, but that's just, so we do these things and they just catch on and we follow it. So my experience is this, though: the human body is extremely complex, and every food has its own chemical concoction as where it's coming in, and it's a different, everything's going. I mean, there's a lot going on, right? If you just think about, if you're trying to do a lab experiment, and today you're putting it in, and boy, I don't remember anything what's what, but you put into this thing, you're putting this thing in their exact measurements, and the next day you put this, but then you put a completely different thing over here. You're gonna have a different experience. We understand that, but every day a person eats. Today I'm eating my eggs, and I'm eating, bacon. Tomorrow I'm eating my kale. I mean, it's all a little bit different. It's all this different input, and that is going to come through in an actual health experience in some way when a person's trying something like fasting. there's the sleep, and then there's the environmental things and the water, and there's just so many factors. So when someone says, when you fast, you are going to feel this way at exactly this time, you're going to feel this way at this time, and you need to only do this kind of fasting. I want to share something. I've fasted over 1,000 times. All right, so I've fasted more than a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the fast I'm in right now, I was very frustrated. I was 192, as you know.
Yeah.
And I thought by day 3, I'll be 182. I just knew I would be, because I've always done this. So it was 24 hours. That was it. And I was like, just not doing a bowel movement alone should have been 5. I was really disappointed with that. And then I said, okay, or doing 1 and whatever. And then the next 24 hours, I was down to 187. I thought, okay, the big day's tomorrow, the third day. Third day comes by, 186.9.
Wow.
Like, what?
You slowed down.
And then this morning, 186.9 at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. I'm like, what? Or I guess it was probably 4 in the morning. I wake up early. Okay, at the moment, I'm at 182.1.
Wow.
Okay, all of that has happened in what? 7, 8 hours?
That's shocking.
I'm losing about a pound every hour right now, or almost a pound an hour.
Wow, you're on
so that has never happened on day 4. That's my day 3 experience usually. And usually during the night, I wake up. And so it's all happening right now. So I'm like, when you said I'm going to end my fast, I don't know if I'm going to end it tonight, because if I'm still dropping a pound an hour, I'm not going to end my fast at 4. I'm going to probably go and end it at breakfast tomorrow morning. Not that I want to go too much more, but I'm right back into where I want to be. The point is this: that's a different experience than I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people need to understand that when they do these kinds of things, there's a little bit of flexibility based on everything that's going on. We need to understand that. And so if a person used to be very healthy and they used to do things like fasting or whatever, and they did really well, and then they became unhealthy or whatever happened, and then now they try it again and they try the exact thing they used to do, their experience may not be that much different than, hey, I used to be really strong. I used to be able to bench 250, 10 reps. So I'm going to go back in the gym, even though it's been 3 years or 3 months and I haven't done anything. Let's say it's just 3 months. I haven't done anything. I'm going to put 250 back on. I'm start going. You're not going to be able to do it, even in 3 months. Well,
Right.
well, what about 3 years? Well, what if it's been a lot longer? And that is the situation. There is what we call rational training, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a person needs to do that. There needs to be some of this, just more of a thoughtful approach and not be so crazy. And that's what I like about every piece of advice you've given me. You've always kind of catered it back to me and where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a successful experience because of that. It wasn't some just a bunch of yelling, screaming, and swearing and rocking, whatever. And then, and then I injure myself. I've never been injured with you. So
that's good.
So that's just,
I want to keep that track record going too. It's just exactly like you explained. Well, first of all, I'm shocked you were able to lose weight by not eating. Doesn't fasting slow down your metabolism? Don't you go into fat storage mode? Isn't that what happens? I'm being sarcastic. No, that's not what happens, people.
Not inside the first 10 days. It riles it up, it gets it going, it starts cranking. And it was interesting yesterday at about 2 in the afternoon on my day 3, there was a switch that went off. It was later than it usually goes off. Usually it's a little earlier. So everything's a little different right now. But switch went off and I had more energy. I had no desire to eat. I sat down at 5 o'clock with my family. They were eating dinner. My wife made this amazing soup that she makes every now and again. It's very rare and it's my favorite. And I'm watching them eat it. And at the end, when they're all done, I realized not once did I have even a desire to eat the food. I had no desire for food. I wasn't hungry at all. There was nothing bothering me. And that's when you get into the fasting state the right way.
You just froze up on us. Where are you? I see your eyes blinking. You there?
I'm here.
Oh, you're back. Okay, can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, it probably recorded it. Probably not getting to you and me. But my point was when I sat there, I did not have any desire to eat at all. There was no hunger pain. There wasn't even an interest in eating. And that was really interesting for me because that's a rare moment. That would not happen unless I really was in fast mode. So it was pretty interesting how this can work. If a person wanted to do a little bit longer fast, although I'm a big fan of just time restricted feeding first, and next a 48-hour fast, like you said, and then if there's a reason, you would want to do more of a 4-day fast. And my reason, I have a medical reason, and that is my skin. I used to get skin cancer all the time. I had serious problems. I had just the basal cell, whatever, ripped off my nose. I got this whole thing here. I got thing here. I've got stuff everywhere. So I've had a lot of surgery. I've had things. Then they used to give me I can't even see it because a lot of stuff is repairing, which is so crazy on your skin when you fast. But I had a lot of issues, and when I do periodic fasts of like a 4-day water fast or whatever, or a 5-day prolonged fast, fasting mimicking diet fast, I find all my skin blemishes, all the things go away. Everything's good. And I don't, and of course I never use sunblock anymore. And I'm out in the sun all the time. I live in Florida now. I get, and a half, and none. And it's so interesting to see how your body, and the doctors all told me, and I met with a lot of dermatologists growing up, in the 20s when I started having these problems.
Yeah.
In 30s, they just said, you just need to be fully covered, never see the sun again, always have crazy amounts of block, and have these hats and have everything you've got. I'm shirt off, walking on the beach. I'm just as tan as anybody and no problems. And I've never been able to be like that in my life. And it's so interesting to see how a lifestyle change that did not require any medication or anything else. I mean, that was the one reason I went to the doctor, was going to my dermatologist. I haven't been for 6 years. I would go in and like, hey, I think I have a problem. This whole thew dredge thing showed up. It's not going away and it's bleeding. So it's pretty cool, when you think about what we could do if we can successfully do the right lifestyle. A lot changes, and it feels good. I mean, it just feels amazing. And it feels great to have some sun on you too. Turns out you're supposed to get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, at least 20 minutes of sun exposure a day with as much of the flesh exposed as possible is my rule of thumb. And in the summertime, every single day that the sun is out, I block an hour out of time where I don't do training, I don't do phone calls, well, sometimes I'll talk when I'm out there, but I do nothing related to work. I don't write articles, don't do anything. I go outside. And sometimes I'll lay on my back for 30 minutes, and I'll lay on my stomach for 30 minutes, and then I come in. No sunblock, no sunscreen, no nothing. And people, it just makes me so mad when people come up to me in the gym and like, wow, you have such a nice tan. I'm like, thanks. Like, you're going to get skin cancer. You're going to get skin cancer. And they start yelling at me. And I'm like, whoa, like, get all that toxic junk away from me. I don't want to talk about it. Don't, just saying the word makes me skeeves, gives me the skeeves. I'm like, don't even think about it. Don't even talk about it. I'm like, I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. Leave me to my own devices. And I just can't stand, like, people just live in such a fear-oriented world anymore. It's like, just think of obvious things. The sun is so powerful and it's so good for you. The antioxidants you get from it, vitamin D release, it boosts your mood, it boosts your hormones. It does so many good things for you. It's not even funny. And it's actually good for your skin. What's problematic is when you put sunblock or sunscreen on that's full of chemicals that you can't pronounce, and you sweat, and those chemicals absorb into your skin because your pores open. And we do that over and over and over and over again. That, in my opinion, is what breaks down the epidermal layer and puts you at risk for skin cancer. And being out in the sun for long periods of time with no protection at all is also bad. So if I'm going to be out there for a long period of time, I will put a sunscreen on that's got, what's that called? Zinc oxide?
Alba or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, organic ones. Organic ones without all the chemicals that I can't pronounce and stuff like that. So it's a
that's the point. When someone's going to go do I want to get to the fandom. It's not like you described, 20 minutes exposure to each side. I'll go for an hour walk in the sun each day, or I'll jog in it on the beach, or do Indian clubs or whatever in the backyard. But that's about the quantity of direct exposure I'm used to kind of getting. I could probably go an hour and a half, but about an hour. But I wouldn't go all day.
Right, exactly. You just got to know. It's like everything can be overdone. Kettlebell training can be overdone. Fasting can be overdone. You can get too much autophagy too often, and that's problematic too. So you got to find a sweet spot that works for you. And as far as time restricted feeding goes, we never really completely clarified. A 12-12 window of time means you eat in a 12-hour window and you fast in a 12-hour window, finishing at 7 p.m., starting at 7 a.m. in the morning. That, in my opinion, everyone in the whole wide world can do, and every one of you watching or listening at home can do it as well. And if you say it can't, I'm going to call you a liar. And it's as simple as pie. And if you cannot fit 30 minutes exercise in a day, I'm going to call you a liar on that one too, because you can easily do that too. So if you're to just do two take-home things that we talked about today, eat between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and do at least 30 minutes of exercise a day. And if you can throw in at least 20 minutes of sun exposure, that's an added bonus. But that is the bare minimum that you need to do to obtain like really good quality of living. And obviously you want to try to eat healthy too. But you can't go longer than 12 hours. So I normally go 16 to 17 hours. Doug was saying that he normally goes 17, 18 hours in his fasting windows every day. It all depends on the individual and what your goals are. And if you're in Doug's position and you want to lose weight, then you might want to do a little more aggressive fasting protocol, which you can build yourself up to. Never would I say jump right into a 4-day fast. I would always start with time restricted feeding, like what Doug was talking about, and literally start at 12 hours and then just build your way up from there until you get confident enough to start adding more, and then throw in an intermittent fasting day where you're doing like 24 hours once a week for like 4 weeks. Then increase that to like 36 hours. So skip a day and then like eat breakfast the next morning, and then just keep building that way. It's not just like jump right out there. And it's like, I would never hand someone 2 kettlebells and say, all right, do a set of 10 double kettlebell snatches. They'd look at me like a deer in the headlights. And even if I showed it to them, they're like, what? Oh, okay. And they try to do 1 or 2, they jack up their back, they break their wrist, and a million bad things would happen. So just like exercise, fasting is very similar. You have to build your way into it, and then you have to find a protocol that works best for you. So what works best for me is 1 48-hour fast a month, and then I do 16-8 the rest of the month. And Doug can verify this. All of the experts out there and specialists say that people with eating disorders, which that is my whole thing, should never do fasting. There's like 3 or 4 different people, because the question always comes up. When a scientist or an expert is talking about fasting, someone always asks in the crowd, who shouldn't do fasting? And it's like certain patients that are like really anemic or like low body weight shouldn't do fasting. Blah blah blah.
Pregnant women.
Pregnant women, yeah.
Children.
Children. And then the last one is always anyone with eating disorders should never do fasting, and they get like really serious about it and they point at everybody. And I'm like, and I sit back, and ironically, fasting actually helps keep me grounded, and it has helped me. So it's completely opposite of what everyone says. And I would love to find anyone else in this world who may have an eating disorder or had one in the past that has used fasting as a medium of treatment for themselves, such as I have. But it has reestablished I talk about this in the movie, but, it really has reestablished my relationship with food. And, I'm still a picky eater. I've always got this voice in my head. It's never going to go away. I still microanalyze food and what I'm eating and how many calories and all that kind of stuff. I don't do it as bad as I used to. There was a time where I used to get on the scale a minimum of 10 times before 10 o'clock in the morning. It was like my 10 by 10 rule. Yeah, 10 times by 10 o'clock in the morning. Insanity. I've been on a scale 10 times total over the past 3 years. So if it's, it's working for me. That's all I can say. I don't know if you have anything to add to that or not. I need some water.
Well, I do agree. I agree with that. And that's why you were in the film. That's why Brittany was in the film. And that's why the psychologists who work with people with eating disorders were in the film, put the whole thing there so people could see it. And it is interesting. I think for me, I wasn't orthorexic like you. But I did seem to have this problem, or do have this problem, that I don't mind eating way more than I need to eat. I'm not even hungry anymore, and I just start eating. And that will particularly be carbs after 8 at night, especially if I'm becoming a spectator and watching something. And so I typically don't do that. I just do stuff now. And 2, I know I don't eat at night. And I seem to be fine during the day. And I seem to be interested in eating more nutritional foods during the day than I was at night. And so just by making that change pragmatically, just for weight control, there was a very pragmatic thing that I saw a lot of results from. If a person just eats good, no matter what, maybe they won't see as much weight there, but they'd see other benefits as well. But let me talk to you about one thing that is, in my opinion, right now, not known.
Okay, hit me.
And that is, when is the best time to not eat?
You just froze on us again.
Eat or beans or diabetics. Okay. Tell me, am I back?
Now you're back.
We know that all human beings become diabetics at 9 o'clock at night.
9 or 7?
Well, they all are diabetics at 9. The pancreas is done. There's a lot of things that have happened in the brain. The brain has to rest. A lot happens by 9. The question is, leading up to that, when do you stop eating? Like in summertime, it's light for a long time. In wintertime, right now where I live, you know, it's a lot softer light at 5:30, even though it's not dark till about 6:15. I have found this time of year, I have to be done eating by 5. So our family actually eats at about 4:15 every day, dinner. My wife, my 2 kids here, that's when we eat dinner. And it's taken a long time, 3-4 years to get to the point that we've made that change, and that's what's happening. But that's when we do it. Ending earlier, I see a big difference on my body if I end a little earlier in the day and then could eat the equivalent of whatever many hours after, could be 8, 9 in the morning, than if I were to do something like stop eating at 7 at night and don't eat again until noon or 1. I find that I get, even if it's a little bit longer break, then I seem to get a little bit more. That's just something that I'm noticing about me. And I did interview some other people, and I found that those who are ending a little bit earlier seem to do better. Or also, not making that last meal a very big meal. Because I've noticed for me, because the body's not processing food as much, I'm still dealing with it like at 8, like 3-4 hours later. I could feel it. But if I have a big meal. However, if I eat a huge breakfast, 10 or 11 or 12, whatever, 2 hours later, I'm not feeling anything. It's done. It's processed right through. So for me, my experience is that I would do better starting earlier, especially in the wintertime, than 7 o'clock. That I find is not as effective for me. It's better to do it a little bit earlier. But if you're just getting people to start, and it depends where they're living, if you're saying, you know, all throughout the year, yeah, the hard fast rule that I've always said, because there's other factors I'm not mentioning, 7 is absolutely the drop dead time. You don't put a morsel in your mouth after 7.
That's called laying it down.
But
buffering. I don't know if it's your internet service or if it's just the cyberspace.
Let's just be honest. It's 8 o'clock now, guys. Think about this. We change the time. We fall back, right?
Yeah.
It's dark earlier now because it's really later. It's really 8 o'clock at night. And so I don't change time zones on eating. That's what I've come up with.
Me either. Your body adapts. That's the way I look at it. It's like, and even when I traveled back east in August through September, when I was back there for a month doing workshops, I had to deal with the change of the time zones and stuff. So when I entered new time zones, I was just dating back to where was my what time zone was in with my last meal, and what time does that equivocate to the time zone I'm in currently. And then I kind of just worked my way across the country that way. And then by the time I got there, I was calibrated, I was fine. And then I did the opposite on the way back.
So what I noticed is Dr. Sachin Panda at the Salk Institute,
right,
who's the pioneer in this space, really is the expert as it relates to time restricted feeding. He told me that it takes about an hour Wait, for every hour time change, it takes about 24 hours for your body to reset, assuming you got good sun exposure in the new time zone. Okay.
Wow.
They both have to be there. So if you're going from California to Florida, you just change 3 time zones. You need to get sun exposure, and you need to get exposure that day. Well, if you're flying, you're not going to see any sun because the way it works, you typically are getting there, it's dark. So the next day, you're getting sun exposure. That first day, 24 hours is the most, 1 hour difference is the most. It'll take 3 days for you to adjust to Florida time schedule back east. Now, I travel extensively. When I'm filming, I'm going all over the place, bouncing back and forth time zones. And what I experienced and learned is that it's easier, at least for me, to go from West Coast to East Coast and adjust than it is to go from East Coast to West Coast and adjust. I have no idea why. I'd love for someone's listening can explain that to you and you relay it over to me. That is something I don't understand why, but it absolutely seems to be the case for me. My body takes a lot longer to adjust the other way. So I don't get it, other than it's earlier over there, and so you're actually eating earlier. But when you're coming back, it's later, and it's takes a while. So we've got to be careful with when we change our clocks on our schedule. And when we change that clock, because Benjamin Franklin had said this is a great idea, we should all do this, way back in the day, and we've been doing it as a nation for a long time now. And we fall back an hour, and now it's dark right at 5 o'clock when you're going home instead of 6 o'clock. I would suggest that you just keep your clocks in the summer schedule. It's not 5 o'clock, it's really 6 o'clock, even though the clock says 5 o'clock when you moved it forward or back or whatever, however you want to do this. So that's the time zone. I personally think, and I have zero real scientific evidence to back this up, other than the statement that it's a shorter time period. We just do it from November to March, and we have that late clock, and it's darker earlier then. So I don't think during wintertime it's a healthy idea to eat late at all. I think that's when you need to be done by 4 or 5. And summertime, you got the sun, it's staying up later. Seems like your body can handle it a little bit more, and you can get away with 7, no problem.
Well, a couple of problems I run into, and I was having a conversation with a colleague about this yesterday and the day before, how like fasting can be, there's wiggle room involved all throughout the whole course of the year. That's the way I look at it too. And in the middle of winter, like we're in right now, my fasting protocol is going to be different than in the middle of summer, when I'm getting up at the crack of dawn, going to the gym, working out an hour and a half, and then I may go and do another hour and a half workout later in the afternoon. I'll go to the park, I'll work on my inning clubs and my Gata drills, I'll go for a hike, I'll go for a bike ride, etc. I'm doing a secondary workout. Friends will invite me for a bike ride at like 4 in the afternoon. We'll go for this 2-hour bike ride. By the time I get home, it's 6 o'clock. So I'm getting home at 6. I want to take a shower. I'm all grungy and dirty. And then all of a sudden it's 6:30. Then I want to prepare food because I'm ravenous. And it's meal 2 of the day, maybe meal 3. I adjust things during the summer because I'm more active and because I've got an eating disorder. I need to make sure that I don't fall completely off the wagon or get back into bad habits. So I have to force myself to eat more. And I will often do like 3 meals a day in the summer and cut my window down to 15 hours or even less, sometimes 14 hours, to make sure that I'm getting enough nutrients in my system. And that's where the fluctuation occurs. And those are like, when people talk to you about those kind of particulars in fasting, talk to them because they know what they're talking about. Don't listen to like all the fluff and all the people with 1 million hits on YouTube and Facebook that have charts and graphs and act like they know everything, and they just start citing studies they've read. They're not experts. They're not hacks. They're not down in the trenches like Doug and I have been for years. They don't know what they're talking about. Follow people who are legit and know what they're talking about. And for me, that's what works for me. And you have to figure out what it is. So I may end up eating until 7:30 or 8 o'clock once in a while in the summer, and I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm going to be okay. Well, today I went for a bike ride, and I had human connection, which we talked about before. I could say, no, I'm not going for a bike ride at 5 o'clock because a friend of mine who I haven't seen in weeks wants to go for a bike ride. No, that's not what's going to happen. Remember, it's an all-encompassing package that we try to aspire to have on a daily basis. You need human connection. You need human interaction. You need hugs. You need kisses. You need to talk to people. You need to look them in the eye instead of your cell phone when you go out to dinner. And you need some kind of fasting, and you need sunlight, and. It's like a 5-step process. It's not just this one thing. And whenever one of those steps gets too far out of control, everything's going to demolish. Just like when I had when I was like in the hiatus of my eating disorder, I was out of control of exercise. I was out of control with caloric intake and tracking every morsel of food I ate and every beverage I had. And all the rest of my areas of my life suffered badly and miserably, including my health too. So you got to strike a fine balance. And it's not an overnight project. Accept it that it could take a while, but it's totally fine. We're human beings, and that's what's expected of us.
You can build up to fasting too. If a person hasn't really done this before, or if they tried a couple of times and really had a miserable experience, I treat it like exercise. So I would start by time restricted feeding. The first 2 weeks are going to be miserable at night for you. You know, you stop at 6 or whatever. Those first 2 weeks are going to be tough. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, you're going to have a tough time. You probably won't do yourself any favor to be sitting watching TV. You'd be better off to get up, go for a walk outside, do stuff, go to bed early, read and do. And the key is do, don't spectate. That will help a lot. But
I like that.
But if you could do that, that will help. And you got to do it for 2 weeks, and then now your brain will suddenly become your friend, because your brain's gonna tell you, I'm not hungry because it's nighttime anymore. And just like your brain used to tell you at midnight or 2 in the morning when you've been asleep for 4 hours, it doesn't wake you up and say, oh, I'm starving, go have a bowl of cereal. Although there are people who'd have to do that. And those are diabetics. Those are really, I mean, they just went too far with this whole thing. But most people, they're not that messed up. They don't have that problem. So they get it. It's like, I'm not hungry at 1 in the morning. So I could probably get myself to the point that not being hungry at 9, because I haven't eaten since 6 or 7 or 9 or whatever. It should work, and it does work. And so my body's to the point now that while I'm in fast mode, I get hungry those first few days between about 10 or 11 in the morning until about 6 or 7 at night, 6. And then I'm not hungry anymore. Even though I'm still in fast mode, my hunger's gone, because my brain knows it's nighttime, you don't eat then. And because I've been doing this for so long. So the first thing I would do is establish that pattern of time restricted feeding, and then extend it out. I would extend it out till the point you can do it for about 18 hours. You know, stop at 4, start again at about 11 or 10 or 11 in the morning or something like that, or stop at 6 and 12 or whatever. So I would do that to the point that that's working pretty well. Could be a week. And would only eat between 12 and 4. So you're going to eat 2 meals a day, 1 at 12 and 1 at 4. And I would do that for a few days. Okay. And once you're kind of okay with that, your body's like, I'm doing this, I'm handling it fine, then I would do a 24-hour fast. This is for the first people if they really are worried about it. This is dipping your toe in the water. What you've done is you've trained it. You've really trained it. And it's going to do a 24-hour fast, no problem. A week later, I'd stay at that point, go back to 18-hour fast or whatever for time restricted feeding for another week. And 1 week from the day that you did the 24-hour fast, I would do a 48-hour fast. And then what will happen is you're going to blow right through that, no problem. You're now ready in about 3 weeks from then to go ahead, if you wanted to do a 4-day fast, and you'll have no problem.
Well, I feel after about 20 hours, that's when I start noticing the most changes already occurring. Like my brain function starts going through the roof. My eyesight starts getting better. Yeah. My energy level starts going up.
You feel bigger. Your arms starting like, whoa, I'm feeling pretty good, right? I mean, all of a sudden, everything happens. I don't understand what's going on, but I always feel that way. Like, whoa.
Yeah, and hunger starts to dissipate big time by 20 to 24 hours. And then the morning after the first day of fasting, so say like 34, 36 hours, it's like hunger is really low. It's way down here. And it just kind of stays there. There's no like dips and valleys, no more spiking of hunger. It's magic. That's the best way to say it.
Something that reminds me, you're saying that reminds me of Dr. Felicia Gersh. And she said that when she had patients, the typical American patient, she'd get them off the crappy American diet first, before she had them do Prolon, which was the fasting mimicking diet. And when they did that for like 3 weeks or a month, basically got their diet totally cleaned up, they would have a positive experience going on that plant-based diet that gets your body into fast mode, Prolon. But if they didn't. A lot of people had a tough time, especially day 3. Some of them couldn't even get through it. Even though they were still eating, their body was in fast mode. It was extremely uncomfortable. And I think for you, because your diet is so clean, that you are achieving these great moments that take me about a day longer. Because my diet's pretty good compared to most people, but I don't know anyone who's at your spot. I mean, you just really are there. And I have noticed on going into fast that family got us to go out to ice cream and eat a pizza, and then the next day I start a fast. That is not a pleasant experience day 2 and 3 for me. No. Compared to I was going into it, well, I'm having a nice salad, I'm very clean, there's nothing in my system. My diet a week early, and it's an important thing for people to understand. Prepare for the fast, and it'll actually be a much more enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree enough with that. And I think also when you do get to a point where you're eating clean and healthy all the time, and then you go into a longer fast, it's like it's easier going in, it's easier maintaining it. Your hunger spikes a little bit in the morning, it's gone. And like Doug was saying, you just get those benefits faster. And every time you do a fast like that, even 48 hours, the benefits just keep accumulating more and more and more each time. It's like layers. It's like you're building layers of a house, and you just keep adding to the house as time goes on.
The other thing is, why are you fasting? I mean, that's something that we need to really talk about for a moment. Why are you fasting? And I think the purpose of it really dictates the length that you need to do and the circumstances that you need to be under to do that fast. For example, if a person has a serious disease or medical condition, the film demonstrates really long fasts and fasts that were done under medical supervision by physicians to manage the disease problem along with what they were trying to accomplish so that they had a successful and positive experience. That might be very different from a person who just has a few extra pounds and they just want to get themselves a little more lean and they want to actually increase their muscle mass by doing some fasting. And then when their body refeeds, some of the muscles were broken down, the cells went away, but they'll always come back as new healthy cells. So you're gonna achieve more and be able to experience better. So it's all a little bit different. And that's kind of why I showed it in the film about fasting. I showed all these different options that people have and what people are doing. It's also interesting to see in a lot of cases you can achieve like diabetes. It seems to go away. There's instances at least of humans overcoming their diabetes by doing time restricted feeding, by doing intermittent fasting, by doing weird concoctions of fasting, like a 24-hour fast coupled with a 44, 40, or 42-hour fast twice a week. And then there's the people who are doing long fasts, like 40-day, 30-day long fasts, just water, and they also overcome their diabetes. So it seems that there are human experiences where all those modes seem to have worked. But at the same time, if you happen to be on something like metformin, there is a very real medical side effect between that drug and fasting that Dr. Walter Longo mentions in fasting, and that would be it's blocking certain communication pathways by the medication, and the fasting get your body to the point that actually needs that really badly. So that can create a problem. And we do know an incidence of a fasting clinic where a person was diabetic and it wasn't a very well run fasting clinic. It was closed down. But that guy died. A diabetic died. So there's a lot to this when we get into unhealthy people and we get into it as treatment, when you're trying to treat medical conditions. That seems to, in my mind, be a little different from what we have always been talking about this whole time, which is what I would call lifestyle. Okay, so that we're changing our lifestyle. We're living a healthy way. We want to incorporate a fasting cycle with feasting in our lifestyle. We want to not eat at night. We want to, if we feel like there's additional need, and try to do a 24 or 48-hour fast or a 4-day fast. There's a reason why we're doing that. For me, I have a real reason. I mean, I want the autophagy to go in my skin so that my skin doesn't have basal cell skin cancer anymore, which it's doing that for me. And I find that very effective. So hopefully that's helpful. There's a reason why we do it. And the more we learn about it, the more we'll see, okay, what I need to do is this. But just be careful, because I will suggest to you that there's been way more announcements of things we've learned than research supporting the things people are saying we've learned. And like all these people are out there since the film came out. I'm like, I know how long it takes to get something out there and published and what's going on. There could not be all that yet. You're like, you know,
Yeah.
we haven't gone that far. So there's some overstatements happening. But as far as what we're doing, I think this is the right way to lose weight. Personally, I don't ever plan to go on a diet ever. I don't want to change my calories over 10 days, knowing it's going to fill up my metabolism. And so I would prefer to go for me, what works is like a 4-day water fast once a month for 3 months. I am, most people I meet kind of hit their goals by that time. And then with time restricted feeding and then clean diet, that works much better, I think, than going and doing some monster calorie restricting thing that now your metabolism's all messed up. And then now you still have to go figure out how to eat right and do things after, and you end up gaining it back with interest, which is what happens for almost
with
everybody.
interest. Yeah. Well, that's why diets don't work. There's no variability there. Variability is important.
In the film, there's a guy who fasts just a pure water fast on his own for he went a long time, a few weeks. And his wife went like 20 days. Well, that was his wife was my sister, and that was my brother-in-law, who they heard me chatting, and thinks if a little bit's good, a lot would be better. He had always eaten badly. I think I mentioned this last time. He had eaten out in a restaurant every day of his life growing up, and that's just what they did. They didn't ever prepare a meal in their house. They always went to a restaurant. So he got a lot of stuff. He probably shouldn't have got that quantity over time. And he was overweight, and his wife was very overweight. They both were overweight. I hope she doesn't hear that word "very" in this thing. Sorry, Lord. But anyway, and so they decided to do this long fast, and they did it. And it was quite amazing, and they looked amazing. Like, I have never seen him look that good before. His skin, everything was great. Fast forward 8 months, they had gained all of it back plus interest.
Oh boy.
All of it. Well, they went over 10 days. They screwed up their metabolism. They went right back to an unhealthy lifestyle. It was one of those, crash fad diets. It's no different than if someone sat there. Well, I don't know if it's any different, but it's not much different than kind of eating disorder kind of approach. That's not the right way to do it. So, we got to think through this a little bit.
Yeah. You don't want to put the baby before the bathwater. Is that the rule of thumb? Is that how it goes?
Right.
Well, the underlying message is fasting is real. Fasting is here to stay. It's not a fad. It's not coming and going. People are starting to shove research articles in my face about it. I kind of I just shrug my shoulders when someone shoves a research paper in front of me. Yes, research is good, but sometimes research is biased by a certain company that's trying to push their initiative or something like that. So I'm very skeptical a lot of times about it. And I also feel that there still isn't really long-term studies that have been done on fasting, to be honest with you. They're just starting to pop up now, but like the keto diet, for example, yeah, people can beg push their initiative on that one and say, oh yeah, it's been around for thousands of years because this is all they had available back in the day, and paleo diet and stuff. I'm like, well, yeah, you got a point there, but we do have this thing called evolution, and we do have better options nowadays. So if you can have a better option that's going to resonate well with your body, then go ahead and do it. And if it doesn't resonate with your body, don't eat it, don't drink it. It's that simple. And I don't really feel that the long-term research is there in the keto diet. And another reason why is because people often abuse it and they eat too much protein. It's not a high-protein diet. People just automatically assume it's high-fat, high-protein, and it is not at all. It's high-fat, moderate protein, low-carb. I keep coming back to that because people still need to be reminded. So if you follow it perfectly to a T, it can do wonderful, magical things for you. However, who's to say that you're still gonna have that magical, wonderful pattern happening 20 years down the road? I don't feel it's been time tested personally. That's just my opinion. And Doug, you don't really follow keto either because you always take my advice of following a balanced diet, which I feel trumps everything.
you are one of the few all along that have talked about balance. Make sure that you got it all on your plate, and why, but make sure it's clean.
Right, exactly.
Right? And it was so simple, and it removed all those restrictions. And boy, restrictive thinking is not good for anybody, even those who have a little different eating disorder mentally. We all, none of us really do well with restrictions. So
no, it's stressful.
I have found that those who follow the extreme diets are really, really living, they're in peril. Their life is in peril. I had a friend who runs very, very far. I mean, he's long distance. I mean, he'll run barefoot 100 miles.
Wow.
And he's done all this long stuff, you know, in California, I can't even remember the name, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, he had another friend who got into the just nothing but veggies and carbs. I mean, veggies and protein. What's that called? What's that? Paleo, whatever. Is that paleo? What is it?
No, that sounds more like keto, probably.
No, it was not keto. It was a lot of meat. Like, it was all about meat.
Jeez.
And he ate a lot of meat. And I told him, I said, come back to me in 2 years. Let's remember this date. And he will have colon cancer. I said it.
Wow. It's a bold statement.
So a year later, I see him. I said, we were at the pool, and I just said to him, hey, by the way, you had that friend who like ate all that meat, you know, the carnivore guy? Yeah. How's that working out for him? He has stage 4 colon cancer.
Wow. You predicted that one.
It's not like I'm smart. USC did the study, and they found that if you eat too much protein, I mean, what's the right amount, right? This little amount. You eat too much protein, you cross this threshold, and first off, the liver treats all the extra like it does the carb. It's going to convert to sugar and all that stuff. But there's other things that are bad, and the statistical correlation to cancer is exactly the same as smoking. It's a 400% increase to cancer when you have too much protein. So be careful when anyone comes out and they're, oh, look, that's great. Yeah, you might look good, especially for a certain time period, but you know, the human body is designed to take all this stuff in. It's very smart, very capable. It's meant to eat good stuff, and it with some variety. And so, you know, it's not good to just go 100% to something. And well, I think anyone who's going 100% weird carb or that, I have a problem with all of it. I only think what you are suggesting makes sense. It's really the way humans should eat. It makes the most sense, and it works.
I believe that is 100% accurate, and that's why I follow it. And that pathway you're describing actually is animal protein. Let's clarify this really quick.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. That's what I've been talking about.
Yeah, if you have an abundance of animal protein, a pathway gets turned on inside your system called mTOR, which is an acronym that stands for mammalian target of rapamycin. That is what produces a high nitrogen balance in your system, which is favorable for muscle gain and muscle mass and muscle preservation. All good news, right? That's why people eat 6 meals a day, to keep that nitrogen balance up and constantly trigger that mTOR pathway. Great. You're going to look like solid as a rock, and you're going to look like Rocky Balboa running down the beach in the summertime and impressing everybody in sight. The problem is that is what causes this disease risk that Doug is referring to. Protein still increases blood glucose, first of all. Not as much as carbs, but it increases it. So first of all, you keep on triggering the blood glucose 6 times a day, and your pancreas has to release insulin 6 times a day, or it just stays releasing insulin all day long. You eat it late at night, and trigger it even worse. Now, that's great for muscle mass, and it's great to look good and all that kind of stuff. But the problem is you also raise your risk for cancer and all these other conditions that Doug was just talking about. And that's what happens when you eat a ton of animal protein. And that's why I suggest everyone does plant-based vegan diet twice a week. And then all the rest of the times, try to do a 50-50 of plant-based vegan and then animal protein. And don't eat an abundance of animal protein. You don't need as much as everyone says, and you don't need as much as the supplement companies tell you. You don't need like 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight a day and spread out through over 6 to 10 meals. Absolute nonsense. I don't buy it, not for a split second. I eat 2 meals a day. I'm totally satisfied with it. So when you take the mTOR pathway and you flip it back and forth, you trigger it and drop it, trigger it and drop it, that's the sweet spot we were talking about. And the way to do that is through balance. Balance with your choice of foods that you eat, balancing your meals, protein, carbs, and fat with every meal, not eating too much animal protein, not going completely plant-based, although there's nothing wrong with that and you can totally survive on it. According to Dr. Walter Longo, he's big into the pescatarian diet and also plant-based diet. And he said that is how you get longevity, which means the extension of life. And he doesn't really talk much about fitness and diet and like fasting protocols in conjunction with muscle mass and muscle gain and lean muscle mass preservation. But that's one of my specialties, and that's where I do a lot of my research. And what I found out is if you do a variation of your diet, that's where you can have the best of both worlds, and you can prevent the disease. You can still get enough mTOR pathway spike to gain and maintain muscle, but not so much that you're going to get yourself sick either. So that's my big hi-yah for what you just said, Doug.
Absolutely agreed. Something I've observed is the old men that seem to live the longest. I went and interviewed Dr. George Shultz, who I mentioned earlier. He was former Secretary of State. I filmed him. He's 98 years old at Stanford, the Hoover Institute. It was 2:30 in the afternoon when we started our interview. He had been working since 8 in the morning, meetings, doing all this stuff. 98 years old, going hard. When I saw him, he walks in, he looked to me like he could easily just pick up the desk and chuck it. I mean, if the guy came after me, I would back up. I was like, whoa, he's a strong dude. And something occurred, or something in while I was filming, someone brought this up, is that men longevity of health, they're better off to be a little bit stronger and have a little bit extra blubber on them than they are to be thinner and weaker. They will live longer disease-free that way, which shouldn't be a surprise. It's the way the man designed, let me just say the man for the minute, historically, was designed. They were out there doing stuff, working at that was good for them. And we know the study back in my favorite study in 1850 that they did in looking at the health, the lifespan of men in London in 1850, and they compared it to men today in America. And the men of 1850 in London lived 3 years longer than men do in America right now, back in 1850. What was different? Well, there's two really obvious things that those three really, but there's two that the article broke out. Obviously, they were doing time restricted feeding. If you don't understand, they didn't have lights yet, so they're going to bed because it was dark. But the second reason is they had organic food, our equivalent, because they didn't commercialize food till 1875. They had the equivalent of organic food coming in on the rails for the first time. The rails came in, and so they had it very inexpensively. Even the poor people, everybody had this great quantity of quality veggies, right, that they had access to. The other thing is they were physically active. They would walk typically 6 miles to work, 6 miles back from work, and they would work long days, really hard. Some of them were doing roads. And they did it until the day they died. There was no retirement. There's no Social Security. There's none of that sense. And as a result, their men lived longer than the guys that we were saying, hey, you're 60. Whatever. Those guys off like flies. So very, very interesting when you look at what does the human body, what is it capable and what's it need? And we all know, you probably experienced this already. I can do harder things now. My level of pain, I'm way more of a tougher guy today than I ever was back when I was a teenager or 20. And I could run around and do things that were, a little more. There's a lot more I could do. And most of these endurance athletes could do more impressive things as they get older. So humans were meant to do stuff all the time. And so when we talk about 30 minutes of exercise as a minimum a day, you might want to be increasing that number throughout your entire life. You may want to also, the other thing that you taught me was I was doing a 2-hour workout in the morning, but then I sat all the way from like 8 until 5 each day editing. And you said, Doug, you'd be better off to get rid of one of those hours and make up for the hour by putting 10 minutes at the end of each hour and doing something that way. And I was shocked at what an effective difference that made for me. It was really interesting.
Well, I always say no, don't go more than 2 hours without a movement break. Even if it's go outside and spin inning clubs for 30 seconds, it's better than nothing at all. And it resets your brain as well as your body too. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of that. Well, we're gonna wrap this show up. Doug, tell everyone where they can find you. Tell them about your latest project and what you got going on.
Okay, probably easiest reference point is my name, DougOrchard.com, and it'll have the links to all my films right there. My latest film just came out. It's in theaters right now, called About the National Debt. And the one before that was Fasting. One before that's Motivation Factor. And I've got some pretty dang interesting films I'm working on. And I don't talk about them anymore because I've had some weird issues where people are taking the ideas and trying to come up with their own movies. I'm not going to do that. You know, and I'm very appreciative of any ideas people have of things they see needs for right now. I get lots of calls each week, but every now and again, there's something that really is something I could do. So that's the spot, DougOrchard.com. Thank you very much. And please consider sharing with any politicians you know or influencers the motivation factor and fasting. The reason I say this is they do not know what to do. I mean, no one knows what to do to solve our problems. And if we can get America back into a fit condition by really exercising, by teaching them through physical education how to exercise correctly, not what they've been doing and what they still are doing in schools, which is a complete disaster. How to use restorative arts that Kevin is to restore the body to a natural state so that people like me who used to go to a chiropractor 3 times a week or 2 times a week hasn't had to go to one for 5.5 years now. I haven't had to go. Awesome. I mean, my back is stronger now. I used to tell people I can't help them move because I have a bad back. We moved here to Florida. I started saying that, and then I showed up, and I'm like the guy. I'm doing all this stuff, and I realized, no, actually, my back is super strong. I don't have any issues. Yeah, I just kind of mentally, but you know, once you had a bad back, you think of it that way. I don't have one anymore. That's gone. All these things are gone because I've learned how to do things correctly, how humans have always done them, and all this is just a bunch of stuff from the past. It's a blast from the past that we realized it shouldn't have gone away.
I agree 100%. Always go to history first and work your way forward. It's really that simple, and master the basics. Fasting is the basics. Restorative arts is the basics. Get good at it. And just for an FYI, I shot a video of myself doing extension press ups today, Doug, and I put it on Instagram before our show to set the mood, to set the tone.
Yeah, I'm gonna go do one. Do you think I could do one right now in a 4-day fast mode? Do you think I can pop? I bet I can still pop one off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go do one. It'll be no problem. All right, I'm gonna go do one right when we're done.
Your growth hormone levels are probably high, so you'll build some good muscle mass after this fast is over, and your stem cells are gonna be jumping off the boards.
I'm feeling great, man. I feel like not ending this. I don't want to go too long, but I'm feeling really good right now.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna go a little while.
Cool.
Hey, thank you, Kevin. Thank you for everything that you do for everybody out there. I tell so many people about Kevin Rail. You gotta go check out what he's up to. You know, Kevin, you really have it figured out, and I hope people understand they're listening to the right person when they're listening to you.
I appreciate that. I really do, Doug. Thank you. And it's my honor to be in your films too. And I know we talked about a possible forthcoming project, but we're going to keep that under wraps because we don't want to, like you said, we don't want anybody stealing.
You'll be back. You'll be back for more, for sure. When your shirt will have to be off again.
Oh, it's too funny.
We'll film you in summertime so you're tan.
All right, sounds good. All right, that's gonna be a wrap for today. This is Train for Longevity podcast episode number 10 of a very special guest, Doug Orchard. And make sure to go to the website pinepawandsuperfoods.com, Train for Longevity, and check out our couple new programs we have in the works right now. Rebuild is one of them, and Reversing Middle Age. And in the meantime, this is K-Rail signing off. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you have any questions or comments for me or Doug, feel free to hit us up. And in the meantime, remember to eat between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and swallow your last bite of food by 7 p.m., I might add. Don't go past it. And make sure to get some sunlight. Make sure to hug someone every day. Pick up one piece of trash. Go beyond your comfort zone and do at least one good deed for somebody without anything expected in return. Can you memorize all that? You may have to play this back a couple times because I talk fast sometimes. All right, this is K-Rail signing off.